Smile. An immigrant from China at 6, I landed on Long Island. No English words are mine. Playing alone outdoors, a stranger speaks to me. Stepmother, what shall I do? Her only advice that I've kept till now, if you don't understand, just smile. Today, I can smile ear to ear. Inside my mask, no one can hear. Paying no mind to social distancing, the jonquils cluster closely. Daylilies sprout green. Iris sheaths spear through the earth, skyward, fearless of COVID-19. Families at pandemic time finally find they can spend more time alone together. I know one family who often go birding alone together. He tells me to compensate for her birding travel not taken. The family watches at Riverlands. She tells me to wrench him out of that dank, dark basement. They now go out to Riverlands alone together. My own granddaughter, San Francisco far, I usually see 3 or 4 times a year. Thanks to school closings and Zoom, we fold origami and cook together 5 times a week, alone together. Family tentacles stretch around the globe, 4 continents, more countries than tentacles can hold. Taiwan, China, Thailand, Egypt, Slovenia, Ireland, Germany, Greece, Scotland, Americans all from coast to coast, more connected now, virtually, alone together. Not an Irish bone in her body, billowing with strong intentions. In the NICU, less than 24 hours after birth, I watched her flip from back to stomach, all 3 pounds and 9 ounces. By the age of 6, Irish dancing seeped into her bones. She's been dancing ever since. Steel springs for muscle leap her to nationals all over the States and Vancouver. Even bars in Boulder every St. Patrick's Day, till COVID-19 put us all on hold. So let's zoom back in time to 1975. Anxious as any new mother, awaiting her suckling babe, she stands there, heavy laden, drooping all the weight. At last, some children arrive, armed with hungry hands. Laughing, they pluck her bare. Her limbs relieved, sigh rise. One season has borne her 10 bushel babes. In my 35, 3 apples bear my genes. To my kitchen they're delivered, I, the high priestess, purify the perfect with water. With fire transform their beings. Filter now the sediment, cloudy rose flows through. Sweetness, timing, gentle heat. Crystal and crimson, complete. 43 days to go. My mother died when I was 4. leaving me no memories. When I turned 38, my father gave me my first photo of her, taken at the same age, 43 days before her death. Not prone to regretting, I never dreamed the day away. Not prone to dreaming, I never regretted moonlight bathing my cheeks, streaming my hair with stars. I never cried into the night, Mama, wherever you are, keep watch, keep watch. Yet today we meet in two dimensions. You do not exceed my expectations. You take my hand, we slip through wax. The cardboard years dissolve. You move easily. I have your ease. You do not speak. I watch your feet. We walk through thick leaves. Thick air leaves my hair steaming. Or was it a sudden downpour? But your feet are not damp. I would have seen your cotton black shoes drink. Not content to loll in bed, Yangtze River rose instead, covering Chongqing with thick air. September, we are there, and Daddy adds the third dimension. You two sit, touching the wooden bench on which I lean, nestled between his right arm draped across your shoulder. Your hand still holds mine, resting in your lap softly. My left hand clutches Daddy's knee. The wrinkles are still there. I can see his hand on mine, his knees lined straight over his feet, his body lean, taut, caught between family and the war. Your face distraught, behind distorting glasses. You must know, 43 days to go. I keep watching for a light in your eyes. The only moon is your face. No stars in your hair. Where am I in you? I am as you were in the fourth dimension. Shall I leave my daughters no regretting, and all the stars you left me, that they can dream the day and watch me as I do you today? If you play Taiji daily, diligently, mindfully, and effortlessly, you can live to be 120. And just because I'm 80 doesn't prove anything. A surefire laugh for decades, especially at 30. Now this year, I am 80. Gotta live to be 140. Being 99 still draws a laugh. The talk of the Delta on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. From the height of Victoria Falls, 355 feet tall, far better named Mosi Oatunya, the smoke that thunders. On the bridge that crosses the Zambezi, she stands halfway to her 69th birthday. Barely over the quota at 92 pounds, torso strapped, lower legs towel wrapped together and tied to the bungee cord. She's blind without her glasses. Fellow safari travelers and other strangers declare Chinese women are strong. Cheer and watch in fear. Her knees are trembling as the countdown starts. 5, 4, 3, 2. She pushes off the ledge, arms spread in a perfect swan dive. Her maroon polo caught forever on Debbie's video. She is free from her father's admonitions, be careful, Be careful from each step taken with thoughtful care, from fear of caterpillars being thrown down her shirt, from fear of skiing a Wisconsin slope. From the outside, you'd never guess what guts dwell in there. No wonder my big sister Joyce is the talk of the Okawanga Delta. Once there was a man, now there is a man. Will there always be a man grown and orphaned, without sibling, without a wife? Alone he is, alone, among acquaintances, mindless chit-chat, hollow. Chinese New Year is a week away. A few yen he saved will buy nian gao, New Year rice cake, for a solo feast. The market is a bustle. He's jostled far from his goal. Pushing his way back, he glances up. On a wall, a painting. A few black strokes. So tender. Two eyes dive deep into his heart. The lady in the scroll calls him. The hell with food. He chooses art. Be careful, my father's mantra, never breaking a bone, still climbing stairs carefully, he was, 2 weeks before his death at 97. Carefree, careless, I had to be before I turned 80. Zip down time. Hey, you musicians, of course you know time. How long you rest between now and next. Zip down time, next is now. I zip with words, I zip numbers. I take my time. Who needs to think? Click Wikipedia, voila. You too can drop names on time. Einstein on space-time, and Sir Isaac, even Doctor Who. Sure, humans know relative time. One summer's day for an 8-year-old lasts forever. At 80, zip, the day's over. Let fractions show how phenomenon like this ripple in space. Put the number of days you've lived in the denominator. This one day now sits in the numerator. On the first day of your life, one sits above and below the line, the only whole number of your life. Day 2, one is above, 2 below. That day is 1/2 your total life. By year 80, 29,200 sits below the line. Now, one day is 1/29,200th of your life experienced one day at a time. In the last 5 years, orchids call out to me. Need I prove my age? Staring at the blooms, never do I see that orchis means testicles. I talk to my toes. Silent servers, decade after decade. You survived a break while I showed off at Esalen, jumping off a wall. Ignored for 5 decades, broken second toe now crosses itself with the big toe. So I'm safe. Should a little white lie ever escape my 2 lips. Flesh of my flesh, let me count another way we are connected. Each day you stand, scrubbed and sterile, scalpel in hand, dissecting a breast, removing what threatens life, stitching together, renovating living tissue. Each day I stand in my scrubby sweats, cleaver in hand, chopping breasts, though I prefer thighs, with help of the blender, egg, and heat, to birth a velvet soup. We both sustain life. And my last poem, others my age are searching for long-term care facilities. I rather write a love poem to a once younger man, now much older, showing me a drumstick a zillion years ago. Your touch, as if by chance, sparked power to this day. You have kindled my sight.
Woo! Good job, Anna.
Okay. Okay. Stefene.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yesterday was May Day, and this is for all of, especially the women that are still out there working and don't have the luxury of staying hunkered down at home. Blessed are the pie bakers of Chicago, the women who begin work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and continue until about 2 o'clock the next morning. The women with one good coat and 2 pairs of passable shoes and 2 bad eyes who make the crust of the pie and put it in the pan, who, like a morning paper compositor, sleep in the daytime. Blessed are the girls who pack crackers and ginger snaps. Blessed are the girls who pack cans of baking soda in well-lit factories. Blessed are the gummers and folders of envelopes, the inspectors of horseshoe nails, the scrap paper sorters singing Bria, Bria, La Stellina. Blessed are the morning paper compositors drawing down the Roman shades. Blessed are the women and girls of the Rattan Works bottoming chairs. Blessed are the girls who pack tobacco, the stenographers, the clerks, the sewers of muslin underwear. Blessed are the stitchers of patches and regalia, attachers of military fringe, braiders of silver cord. Blessed are the painters of silk banners, the painters of all-seeing eyes on Oddfellows flags. Blessed are the makers of cuffs and ties, the affixers of buttons. Blessed are the telephone operators, the day force, the extra force, the night force, the relief force. Blessed are the head milliners and the telegraph operators, the canners of tapioca, the insulators of silk-wrapped wires. Blessed are the box makers, the sorters and the trimmers. Blessed are the turners, the vampers, the eyeleters. Blessed are the women of Blue Island, the women of Throop, the women of Ashland and Galt and Noble. Blessed are the women of North Division and the women of South Division. Blessed are the finishers. Blessed are the closers. Blessed are the stayers. Of course, all that runs through apps now, but that, I don't know, maybe that would make a good poem about Instacart. They call it fanning, yellowing of leaves on one branch at the crown. It means the tree is doomed, that under its bark, beetles are chewing swoopy hieroglyphs in the wood, infecting the tree with fungus. When you peel back the bark, it looks like the bugs have been hard at work drawing shapes and having a little art show, so they call it a beetle gallery. In the late 1950s, no one noticed it. No one looked for beetles. No one noticed it till 1961, a drought year, when all the elms began to die. 8 years later, the Cuyahoga caught on fire. 9 years later, astronauts turned the camera around so we could look at ourselves from outer space. Mothers and fathers watched astronauts bounce on the moon through cat-eyed glasses and horn-rimmed glasses. They felt like crying, but they didn't cry. They developed mysterious headaches and stomach aches. They visited cemeteries and dug holes on Arbor Day and forgot to plant the tree. They stopped eating things out of boxes. Fathers abandoned their bowling leagues for reenacting, smoking meerschaum pipes and growing out their whiskers and asking their wives to make them simple linen shirts and linen pants. Fathers left on camping trips with their friends but left their tents and fishing poles at home, pretended to be blacksmiths and rope makers and rug makers, played billard with hand-painted cards. Fathers wore funny little caps and joined drum and bugle corps. They forged their own swords in the garage. Mothers threw out their girdles and daytime gloves and rat-tailed combs, ran their unpolished nails down the columns of university catalogs, wore tiger suits on Halloween, waited till everyone was asleep and planted pin oaks, sweet gums, thornless locust, white birch, and tulip trees in the dark yard, dialed up the blazing phone tree on rotary, forgot the rosary, opened candle shops, opened ceramic shops, learned guitar, taught guitar, opened guitar shops, refused to brew the coffee during social hour at church, refused to sew simple linen shirts and linen pants for their now demanding husbands, kissed the neighbor behind a tree during a neighborhood picnic, said, "I remember climbing elms hand over hand, foot by foot. The city said it cut them down when they got sick, but I say they were never there at all. A figment of a figment, something fractured, a fragment. We remember a tunnel of green trees, and really all along the streets were there. Those elms we remember were never really there. We imagined them there. The girl who climbed the tree was never really there. The girl I thought I was, she was never really there. The one who put crackers and butters and caramels and comic books in a pillowcase and climbed a tree was never really there. The one who climbed the tree, who sat in the upper canopy and said, 'Hey tree, you have a crown and I have a crown. We are the queens of everyone, everybody, everything.'" When your grandmother visited from California, she washed her rayon dresses and her pantyhose in the bathtub, swirling them in lukewarm water, sudsy with a special soap she bought from Avon. At night, she had a chiffon bonnet she wrapped around her hair, and it looked like a green pastel halo when she knelt by her little bed to pray. Your grandmother grew up in a big house with a ballroom that's filled with wasp nests now. The French doors to the ballroom cracked in 1983. Your grandmother's mother's mother was French. Your grandmother played in the bell choir and ran committees at church. She gave you hotel room Bibles and cellophane tape for Christmas. Your grandmother took you and your sisters and aunties and cousins to a tea at the Gold Room at the Sheraton Jefferson to see a historical fashion show to raise money for the ladies' bell choir at church. Your grandmother subscribed to the Upper Room magazine. She memorized scripture. The aunties on the other side of the family checked out books from the library like Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique and Helen Gurley Brown's Sex and the Single Girl, written on Helen's famous silver typewriter. The middle-aged ladies at the fashion show smiled and tried to look delighted, but their faces betrayed a hint of Puritan disapproval and sadness. The tabletops cluttered with coffee cups, Coke bottles, empty dessert plates, and 30 ashtrays. A lady never left home without a brooch or sprayed hair, but there was a point when you were expected to embrace the gravitas of wrinkles and a bearish figure. Helen Gurley Brown wore miniskirts and fishnets until she was 80. She wrote a telegram on her silver typewriter telling the words "Madame," "Ma'am," "Matron," and "Dowager" to go to hell. She survived on saccharin and caffeine in the words she wrote on her silver typewriter. Your grandmother taught typing in high school. In high school, you sat in the back seat of your father's station wagon listening to your grandmother say she'd go to dinner, but she'd just sit with us and have a coffee with a little bit of sweet and low. In high school, it seemed impossible that there would be a day when you would stop wearing silver dresses, that you would stop wanting to see your own face in the mirror in the morning, that one day you'd refuse to eat cake for breakfast, that one day you would feel ashamed to fold silver paper airplanes written with love notes to launch in the air towards your crush, that one day you'd have coffee for breakfast or dinner, that the day would come when you'd stop watching for silver sails all out of the west under the silver moon. And this last one is for my sister. There's a tiny star splinter stuck in Jennifer's eye. She was born with it. She gets the same kind of migraine saints do. She was born with a diamond in her eye, a magic lens. When she's sick, she sees through walls and tells you what you're about to say. Even people who don't know I'm Jennifer's sister call me Jennifer when they forget my name. She's a year younger. My parents were off in their naming and timing. She won't tell me what people call her when they forget that she's Jennifer. My sister calls radio stations and wins tickets every time. She won't say if that's dumb luck or smart luck. She quilted a dress from all her backstage passes. She wears it to concerts, though it's so stiff she can't dance. My father says when I was born, he set me on his knee and asked, "What's your name, little girl?" And I made a noise and I named myself. The saint with my name was the teenage wife of a soldier. She comforted St. Victor. They lashed her to 2 bent palms and cut the rope. I'm a Gemini. I've always lived on corners. I dream about rained-on maps, roads bleeding through both sides. Jennifer found a loose diamond on the floor of a disco. It strobed at me, she said. How could you miss it? It's so easy to be lucky. You're not looking, you're not trying. You can't win if you don't enter. Negative ESP is real, I said, and I proved it. 1 month of scratch-offs, sweepstakes, Cracker Jacks, raffles, roulette, call-ins, ring toss, horse races, bingo, bell jars, coin flips. I played, I lost. Jennifer flew to England. They were down to 1 engine over the ocean. Secret Jennifers shake or drink, but actual Jennifers know their luck and sleep. When there's a diamond floating in your eye, it fills your sight with rainbows hiding in prisons. My name means crown. What floats in my eye? A small cork heart and its shadow, a piece of wayward tinsel, a thistle seed, a fat green question mark. On the back of the retina, burnt image of my mother and father before I was born, and my sister, cartwheeling to arrive right after. What's your secret? I ask her. Rabbit, rabbit, she says. Thanks all, thanks. I'm going to mute now. Oh, I'll mute before I scratch my chair.
Hi. Thank you for visiting our homes and for visiting this room of mine where I write. In Italian, the word stanza means room or space or stopping place. So more importantly, I welcome you to stop into the rooms that I have written as poems. I'm going to read 5 of them tonight. These poetry spaces are safe spaces. You can stop here, even without a mask. These rooms just know the sounds and precious moments we've saved in stanzas. These are my rooms. These are my other homes. So this first poem is about home and leaving it. It's called On Leaving Home. It takes forever, and still you never get there. It is a destination, this leave-taking, a deep sky you cross under, beneath the unknown. It is an intractable breath, echoing your first newborn cry, or the willowy sigh of a spring storm in the wide open changes of everything. When your mother and father are busy, their eyes turned away, you go on beginning. You take with you all you can bear, your reputation, your old habits, all your unease heaped inside you like unfolded clothes. You stockpile miscellaneous flatteries, backup plans for an understudy to love you, other maps of the self. You bring caution with you, like a compass. You carry your old opinions held rigid as unbending postures, tensed against the wind. You hoard sugary daydreams entwined in the sheerest garments of time. You send out flares made of shiny words like these, and you wonder what you will turn to far away, and who you will turn into when you do. I like to write about emotional moments, invisible ones, invisible gestures or feelings that you can't save in real time. So if it weren't for words, they might escape remembering altogether. This poem is a memory collage about my being a young mother. It also includes 2 other separate moments, years later, when each of my invincible daughters let me participate and help them give birth to their own daughters. So I wrote a verbal collage out of these emotional moments and combined them in this poem into a single space. When she pulled the child from between her legs, the mother didn't see she was pulling her own heart in 2. We never think that mothering brings a right and a wrong into love. Afterward, when her blood poured out, used up as molted skin, she thought it was an old tide escaping the pull of the moon, that a new gravity had taken hold of her pulse. It's never the cord that tugs too hard. It's the silent cut of it. How could her sticky fingertips feel that this egg-shaped head, waterlogged and furred as an orphan seal, would ripen without her, would know separate desires, would require different forgettings, would crave a carefree unknown instead of the predictable future that had steered her mother like an outstretched hand. When the baby's legs unfurled and the bud of her sex peeked her hope into life, the mother sobbed so hard with joy, she forgot to move aside and make room for someone nearly like her, someone who was steamy fountains and wildfires, who became her own journey down unseen stream beds, who brought with her the burden of being a squealing witness to their memories. As soon as the girl's miniature mouth blew her breaths into the breast, her mother mimed an odd alphabet of her baby's sucking sounds, sang new words to her liquid cries, held onto this pull too tight and not tight enough, not yet understanding that the most soothing answer for her own needs had just been born and had slipped forever away, all at once. That this love was so whole that she would never again remain all in one piece. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about family and our times together, and missing my family because we can't spend time together. And I've been thinking how much my family feeds into my need to make poems. So thank you, my family, for being in my heart, if not yet in my home, and being contained in the work of writing that I seem driven to do. So here are 2 poems of thanks. The first one is called Turning the Corner. It's to my husband. I thought I saw your shadow as you turned the corner of our house. You loped, long-legged like a boy, your arms, the ones I know by heart, all tangled up in fallen tree limbs after last night's storm. You were on a mission, so you didn't feel time's pinhole, clinging to your elusive light, like me, memorizing you from our wooden deck. I thought this well might be my memory of you, walking, busy, and so blurred, and so swiftly out of sight, around the corner of our house, your hands brimming with brown bags and muddy trowels, your knees sweat green from kneeling on soggy springtime grass, head full of jumbled tasks still left to do. You left no wet footprints stretching backward as you moved on ahead. You were really there and here in this timeless present tense of our emerging everydays, planting grasses, dumping trash, thinking of a beer. How do I prolong the undamaged here and now of you when an aging shadow of our future hovers just around a corner in that someday of our blooming garden? I'm going to read you a poem called Dayenu. Dayenu is an ancient Hebrew word meaning just this would have been enough. And it is repeated at the Jewish holiday table as we do every year in gratitude for blessings. My family is my blessing. Dayenu. When the holidays are over, then it is our time to take the center leaf out of the table and let the dining room grow still and bare in tidy memories. Each time, a quiet fullness says, Dayenu. My nomadic children left the table all those years ago to our safekeeping, roving far away to forage and to find. And on holidays, it is again Dayenu when they return, when there are more arms gathered home, both thick and thin, reaching out for platters heaped with favorite foods, when elastic shadows frolic in the candlelight, when their glowing faces relish flavors from their youth, soaking up the sweet and tang of it by heart. Each year when they come back, they offer more of who they are, more of what they've seen, wanting less of what they've lost or left behind. And each time they arrive, they bring fresh hungers to fulfill until their mouths overflow with the stories of the worlds they want to tell. They are needing childhood joys and still craving more of life than simple happiness. This too is Dayenu. Year by sprawling year, our table's surface grows more cracked and grooved with life's abrasions, as if the worn-down wood itself could hold on to family conversations with hieroglyphic scuffs and stains etched into a familiar background, like a roadmap, timeless and indelible as memory. And this year, in the crisp transparency of daylight, we will again restore the shorter, serene version of the table to itself and shove its vacant inlaid ends into a single slab, and it will read Dayenu in the same veined way our lives are all inscribed in it together, not because of what remains there, but because of all that changes. The last poem I'm going to read to you is called The Guide. I think it's good to write poems that have no answers. So this last poem occupies a metaphorical home that may be familiar to each of us. The Guide. How to live in this place we call life, its borders flabby as old skin. How to walk on its muscular surface below our uncertain feet without tripping or falling or flailing for balance, unaware of grabbing beyond all that surrounds us. How to wander away from the old path, the one where we were taught to tiptoe around everything, even our shadows. How to walk in the light as if it were unbreakable, as if it would linger, as if our lives weren't made of eggshells. Thank you all very much for joining me in my room.
Thank you. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm reading from a manuscript entitled Feeding the Dead, which I think has a sort of cross-cultural piece of information in it, because when I have been treated to be in certain sorts of spaces in certain Asian communities, sometimes there is food for Buddha and incense. And when I've been in other indigenous African communities, sometimes there are food and ashes and sweet things for Oshun or some other Orishas. So this theme of aging is a universal theme, of course. There are only two choices: die young or get old. So this first one is called Feeding the Dead. Our dead don't get nothing but cold 40s. Maybe that's why in all the movies they riding down mad as hell, a fistful of razors. And they always want to kill people who've had a good meal or an orgasm, cause their stomachs is distended and their livers is achy from living off nothing but liquids. When my grandmama was a girl, they used to have some wakes that were really feasts, and a large plate would be set out brimming with greasy hoe cakes on a bed of fresh churned butter, blackberry wine in a jar, some snuff too. Maybe that's why all her ghosts are cordial. Sometimes they tell her the future. Her departed uncle even offered her money. She say he grinned a greasy mouth grin, held out a greenback, but when she refused to take it, he put it back in his pocket and patted his full belly, growing dimmer every time. Sang. It weighs me down being from a place that can serve as a catch-all word for oppression, a place whose name comes up most often in the mind as the title of some black, inevitable tragedy, a place that, depending on the inflection in the voice, can be a joke. Well, that's Mississippi, an ugly secret you know about Mississippi, or a sad, solemn fact that, my friend, is Mississippi. A place that when I tell people I'm from there, I'm transported through their pitiful eyes into a panoramic scene. The backdrop, Terra, soundtrack, Swanee River, of course. The scene, pungent magnolias tempered by weeping willows, the cotton fields full of bent black backs, and wide straw hats are to the far left. With Mammy and Daddy standing by. It weighs me down being from this place and not being able to make people know about how I was my grandmama's sweetie and her little thing, and that she combined the words and called me her sang. And how most times I walked around singing, or how I used to recite speeches and receive awards, or how I used to play and eat till I was full, and how my mama was weird and my grandmama was sassy, and how the bills were always paid and the refrigerator was always full, how I dated and fell in love and had petty jealousies and sang in choirs and caught cabs and rode buses and hated my baby cousins and was a sore loser, and how I was one of the good girls, or how I lived in Mississippi all my life, happy, unlaced like shoes, and open as a mammy's heart. There was a time when I was a new teacher. I was a novice teacher in public schools, and that was 20 years ago now. In fact, that was 22 years ago now. So this is for some students who are now um, parents themselves. It's called Bully. My students listened rapt as I described the sting. We read Wright's story about Memphis, little boys and bullies. I invoked your name, Tommy, that held me fear personified in your sight. Your stride seemed to me an insurmountable gulf, your black skin a cape. You told me you were going to slap my face. My students were angry, shoulders raised, ready to mend ancient wounds and come to a long grown little girl's defense. As I was growing into my own womanhood, I had several um, interesting and beautiful examples of some of the choices of what type of woman to be. And one of those was a couple in my town who said they were uh, grandmother and granddaughter, I think. But really, as we became older, we realized that they were lovers. So this is called spinsters. They are sneaky, those old maids we pity. Their house is in the middle of the block, and it has been there for as long as we know. Their parlor walls are lined in heavy brocade, and behind that is wallpaper covered in fox hunt scenes with beady-eyed hounds. Those chairs with backs too straight to allow sitting match the chaise lounge that forbids reclining. But if the deacon who came to collect money for some newly deceased parishioner pushed past those velvet partitions, swung open the oak door, stepped across the threshold, he would see the bowl of wet pomegranates on the table, the half eaten passion fruit in the sink. His toes would sink into the soft carpet of the hallway that is lined with framed black and white photographs containing half moons of pretty career girls sitting in Chicago cafes, bowls of hand chopped ice before them, with 2 bottles of gin besides. He would see the wine glass on the tub side, and that the bedroom had no door except the gauzy tulle curtains that tickled when you entered. He would run his astonished hand through the empty lingerie drawer and notice that the well worn novella on the pillow smelled of chocolate, was hand bound, and written in a language he could never understand. Oh, Heavenly Father, it was a smoky June day when my daddy decided that he wanted that white Jesus off of the living room wall. And my mama reminded him who paid the rent. Daddy was just visiting. Jesus had been the man in our house for years. prescription, or for what ails you, or poetry on demand. Sister, I need some poetry to hope my heart. I need my poetry to be non addictive. I need poems. I need a quip quickly, a quote quarterly. I need something that will fit on a bumper sticker or a pen, something I can read instead of a daily devotional, something that will get them niggas at work off my back. I need a poem better than my vibrator, even better than somebody else's man. I need a poem that will go with a badass purse and stilettos. A poem, girl. A poem I can light during a long hot bath. A poem that smells like musk, lavender, and a hint of patchouli. A poem that smells better than the jacket he left in my closet. I need a poem that will keep me from getting pregnant. A poem that is hormone free and pro choice. I need a poem for Black girls who considered tubal ligation when the pill wasn't enough. I need a poem that reduces the size of fibroids, and for God's sake, a poem that does not promote yeast. I need a jet black poem, a dangerous we shouldn't be doing this poem, a that was the best head ever poem, a ladies night drinks a free poem, a Jimmy Choo Shoe 99% off poem, a baby let me get that poem, a you don't look a day over 30 poem, a Ben and Jerry's whole pint poem, a really bad romance novel thoroughly read poem, a mental health sick day off to shop poem, a this outfit is so expensive I hid the receipt poem, a high school boyfriend seeing me and saying I should have married you poem, a best gay boyfriend poem, an end of the day and I take my bra off poem, a peace poem, a healthy poem, but most of all a poem that will never make me cry. My last poem is a short one, and it's the last poem in my book, Chop, a collection of Quan Savas for Fannie Lou Hamer. And it's called Bound. My man Paps wants to save me up like change, but this thick black body is spent. Spare breast, spare kidney, fibrous womb taken 'fore I knowed it, was gone lay down my burden. I'm riverside bound for the promised God. I would serve him till I die. Thank you.